showered with honours and the job not completed.
The first half of the story is a classical naval battle. The second half of the story is a story of guile and deception, and perhaps one of the biggest bluffs of the Second World War.
In Montevideo, Langsdorff requested a meeting with the Uruguayan government. Accompanied by the German minister, Langsdorff was seeking permission to stay in the port for 2 weeks to complete repairs to his ship. The Uruguayans eventually agreed to permit him to stay for a maximum of 4 days. Outside the harbour, the British force was now reduced to 2 small cruisers, the Achilles and Ajax. Harwood was concerned that without reinforcements he would not be able to stop Graf Spee if she made a run for it. A plan had to be found to ensure Langsdorff was kept in Montevideo longer. The man given responsibility for this was the senior British diplomat, Eugene Millington Drake.
My grandfather was a great eccentric and a very colourful character. He was known for his enthusiasm for taking exercise, and he was a great sportsman. And he would walk down the street and possibly stop suddenly on the way to the office and do a few press-ups or a few stretches.
Millington Drake quietly recruited a band of British pensioners and sent them down to the harbour to spy on the new arrival. He then went to meet the Uruguayan foreign minister and, in a cunning move, invoked an international law called the 24-hour rule.
If a merchant ship sailed, a foreign warship was not allowed to sail within 24 hours. And the British used this mercilessly to try and keep Graf Spee in Montevideo, much to the disgust of the Uruguayan government.
Millington Drake secretly arranged for a British merchant ship to leave Montevideo every day.
Eventually, the Uruguayans got so frustrated that they said, "You aren't allowed to send any more ships to sea," because they could see how they were being manipulated by the British.
Undaunted, Millington Drake and naval intelligence kept up the pressure on Langsdorff. The British knew that their telephone line was tapped by the Germans.
Well, it's a matter of some urgency.
A call was deliberately put in to the ambassador in Buenos Aires, pretending to arrange for the imminent arrival of 2 more heavy British warships. As anticipated, the call was intercepted by German intelligence and reported to Berlin. The British also leaked the story to the press. The Germans were convinced that Harwood had major reinforcements arriving in the River Plate.
Millington Drake had been pulling the strings again. He was, as I like to put it,
The man behind the curtain. Und das hat er auch hervorragend.
and he was very good at it.
My grandfather would have loved the cloak and dagger element of the diplomatic battle, of the drama. In particular, the need to create a lot of false intelligence which would cause the Germans to think that there is a huge force out there waiting.
Langsdorff and his officers became totally of the view that if they went out of the Plate, they would run into a much more powerful force. The deception had worked brilliantly.
And now time had run out for Langsdorff. Despite his appeals, the Uruguayan government insisted Graf Spee had to leave Montevideo before 8 o'clock Sunday evening. A second battle now seemed inevitable.
Man war sich von vornherein daran klar.
It was clear from the outset that whatever was to happen, were the ship to leave the harbour and engage in battle, one way or another it meant destruction.
Führen würde, so oder so.
Langsdorff signalled Berlin, explaining his predicament and asking for instructions.
Inside Montevideo, we have Langsdorff, who is increasingly worried about the presence of Allied capital ships. Outside the harbour, we have Harwood, who is only too aware that those capital ships have not turned up and are miles away, and is very, very concerned that if Langsdorff does come out, he'll be able to get by him out into the open ocean, he'll be lost, and he might even get home.
On board HMS Ajax, Harwood wrote of his fears in a letter to his family.
I have a most difficult problem to catch him again, and if he escapes, all the good we have done will be upset. Not all, but a lot of it. The mouth of the plate is wide, and there are so many ways out that it's very difficult. Probably another battle, and who knows. I hope for the best. You'll know by the time you get this.
If the worst happens, bring my sons up to be men.
Everybody was waiting for the battle to continue, naturally. That was the assumption. Huh? It's an unfinished battle. The Graf Spee cannot remain in Montevideo. The British are waiting outside. The German has to leave the port. Naturally, a clash has to occur.
Es wusste ja zunächst kein Mensch, was passiert nun.
To begin with, nobody knew what was going to happen. Is the Graf Spee going to set sail again? Will the Graf Spee try to reach another harbour? Will the ship engage in battle with the English ships anchored off the River Plate estuary? What is going to happen?
The pressure on Langsdorff was becoming intolerable. Again, he signalled Berlin for instructions. The reply was not helpful. He was ordered not to let the ship fall into enemy hands, but was given no direct orders as to what action to take. Why Langsdorff did what he did next is one of the enduring mysteries of the Second World War. But Timewatch has, for the first time, been given access to Langsdorff's personal archive. For 66 years, his daughter has kept his last letter home hidden away, secret even from her own children.
I am writing this letter on my last day as commander of this proud ship. My decision was not an easy one, but two rules served as guiding principles. Firstly, being prepared to take on any responsibility as long as there was the slightest chance of harming the enemy. Secondly, the dispassionate consideration not to send my men to their deaths unnecessarily, but to maintain the ship's honour and the flag's honour to the last.
Graf Spee slowly started moving just at sunset. It was very theatrical, you know. It was a beautiful summer day. Half the population of Montevideo, hundreds of thousands of people, was concentrated along the Rambla.
Langsdorff's final showdown with Harwood now seemed inevitable. But as the crowds watched, most of her crew was transferred to tugboats before the pocket battleship slowly left the harbour.
I remember this precisely. 1955, 7:55, this disk of the sun was slowly sinking on the ocean. And then the sound, an explosion, which at first it seemed like a cannon. People thought the battle has started. Others said, no, that's only a smoke screen. No, actually it was a suicide. It was a suicide. The German ship was committing suicide.
Langsdorff, outmanoeuvred, believed all was lost. With no clear orders forthcoming from Berlin, he disembarked the rest of his crew and scuttled